The automatic doors of the emergency room burst open with a violent rush of cold night air. I was standing at the nurse's station, updating patient charts, when I heard the wheels of the gurney scraping against the tile floor. The sound was wrong. Too fast. Too desperate. I looked up and saw him, a paramedic in his mid-30s, his uniform soaked with sweat despite the freezing November weather outside. His eyes were wide, scanning the room like a hunted animal. Behind him, 2 more paramedics pushed the gurney with unusual urgency. The patient was covered completely, head to toe, a white sheet pulled so tight it looked like a shroud. That was my first red flag. We never cover living patients like that during transport. Never. I moved toward them instinctively, my training kicking in before my mind could process what I was seeing. But before I could reach the gurney, the main entrance doors opened again. This time, 3 men in military uniforms entered. Not medical personnel, not hospital security, actual military officers. The lead officer, a tall man with silver hair and cold blue eyes, raised his hand, and his voice cut through the chaos of the emergency room like a blade. Everybody out. This room is now under military jurisdiction. Medical personnel, step back immediately. The entire emergency department froze. Doctors, nurses, residents, everyone stopped mid-action and stared. This had never happened before. Not in my 12 years working here. The paramedic who had entered first locked eyes with me for just a fraction of a second, and that's when I saw it. His right hand moved to his chest, fingers forming a shape that looked random to everyone else. But I recognized it. It was American Sign Language. The letter H, then E, then L. Help. He was spelling help. Before I could react, the military officer stepped between us. I said everyone out. That includes you, paramedic. You've completed your transport. Leave now. The paramedic's face went pale. He opened his mouth as if to protest, then closed it again. His jaw clenched. He looked back at the gurney one more time, and I saw something in his expression I had seen countless times before in this job. Guilt. Crushing. Unbearable guilt. He turned and walked toward the exit, but not before his hand moved again. This time, he pointed 2 fingers toward his own eyes, then toward the covered patient on the gurney. Watch. He was telling me to watch, to pay attention. The doors closed behind him, and the military officers surrounded the gurney. 2 hospital security guards appeared and began ushering the remaining staff out of the area. I backed away slowly, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing through everything I had just witnessed. As I reached the hallway, I glanced back one more time. The sheet covering the patient shifted slightly, and for just a moment, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A tattoo. Dark ink against pale skin. But it wasn't the tattoo itself that terrified me. It was the design. A symbol I had only seen once before, years ago, in a classified briefing about international criminal organizations. This patient, whoever they were, was not supposed to be here, and that paramedic knew it. He had tried to warn me with the only tool he had left. Silence and hand signals. Something was happening in my hospital. Something dangerous. Something that involved people powerful enough to shut down an entire emergency room with a single command. And somehow, I was the only one who had seen the truth. The question that burned in my mind as I stood in that hallway, watching armed officers guard a room that should have been filled with doctors trying to save a life, was simple but terrifying. If they found out I knew, what would they do to silence me? If this story has already gripped you, go ahead and subscribe to the channel now, because what comes next will surprise you even more. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from? I want to know where you are in the world right now. My name is Catherine Morgan. I'm 42 years old, and I've been a registered nurse for 12 years. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and secrets were impossible to keep. Maybe that's why I learned early on to read people, to notice the things they tried to hide. My father was a police detective, and he taught me that the truth is always there if you know how to look for it. After nursing school, I moved to Chicago, then to Boston, and finally settled here in Seattle 3 years ago. I work the night shift at St. Catherine Medical Center, a level 1 trauma facility that sees everything: gang violence, car accidents, overdoses, and occasionally, cases that don't make sense. Cases that come with armed guards and orders to look the other way. I've always trusted my instincts. In this job, your gut feeling can mean the difference between life and death. That night, every instinct I had was screaming that something was wrong. After the military officers cleared the emergency room, I went to the staff lounge and sat down, trying to process what I had just witnessed. The paramedic's face was burned into my memory, the way he had looked at me, the desperate sign language, the guilt. I pulled out my phone and opened the hospital's internal system. I searched for any record of the patient who had just been brought in. Nothing. No admission. No name. No case number. It was as if that gurney had never entered our building. That's when I knew this wasn't a simple classified medical case. This was something else entirely. I thought about the tattoo I had glimpsed under the sheet. The symbol was distinctive, and I remembered exactly where I had seen it before. 5 years ago, I had worked briefly at a military hospital in Virginia. as part of a trauma exchange program. During orientation, we were shown images of markings associated with international trafficking rings and terrorist cells. That symbol was on the list. A serpent wrapped around a dagger, with 3 stars above it. It belonged to a criminal syndicate that operated across borders, involved in everything from arms dealing to human smuggling. If that patient had that tattoo, they were either a member of that organization or a victim of it. Either way, their presence in this hospital, under military guard, meant something much bigger was happening. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. Part of me wanted to walk away, to pretend I hadn't seen anything, to go back to my normal shift and forget this ever happened, but I couldn't. That paramedic had risked everything to send me a message. He had asked for help, and if I ignored that, I would be complicit in whatever was happening behind those closed doors. I stood up, took a deep breath, and made a decision. I was going to find out the truth, no matter what it cost me. Thank you for staying with me this far. That shows me you feel the same thing I felt when I lived through all of this. So go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell, because what comes next changes everything. I waited exactly 47 minutes before making my move, long enough for the shift change chaos to begin, but not so long that the military presence would disappear entirely. I grabbed a medication cart and wheeled it down the corridor toward the restricted area. If anyone stopped me, I would say I was restocking supplies. Nurses are invisible when we're doing routine work. People see the cart, not the person pushing it. As I approached the sealed-off section, I saw one guard standing outside the double doors. He was young, maybe 25, and he looked uncomfortable. His hand kept moving to his radio, then dropping back to his side. I slowed my pace and pretended to check the cart's inventory. That's when I heard voices coming from inside the room. They were arguing. One voice was calm and controlled, clearly in command. The other was panicked, almost pleading. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Someone inside that room was terrified. I moved closer, adjusting my position so I could see through the small window in the door. The patient was no longer on the gurney. They were sitting up on the examination table, and the sheet had been removed. It was a man, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair and the same tattoo I had seen earlier, now clearly visible on his neck. But what shocked me wasn't the tattoo. It was his face. I recognized him, not personally, but from the news. 2 weeks ago, there had been a report about a federal witness who had vanished the night before he was supposed to testify in a major organized crime trial. The case involved international smuggling networks and high-ranking officials. The witness had disappeared without a trace, and the trial had collapsed. This was him. This was the missing witness, and he was here, in my hospital, surrounded by people in military uniforms who were not trying to protect him. They were interrogating him. One of the officers leaned close to the man's face and said something I couldn't hear. The witness shook his head violently, and tears streamed down his face. He was begging. That's when I understood what the paramedic had been trying to tell me. This wasn't a rescue. This was a capture. Someone had found the missing witness, and instead of bringing him to safety, they had brought him here, to a place where no one would think to look. A hospital, hidden in plain sight. My hands were shaking as I backed away from the door. The guard turned and looked at me, and for a moment, I thought I was caught, but he just nodded and turned back around. I wheeled the cart away as calmly as I could, even though every nerve in my body was screaming at me to run. When I reached the staff lounge, I locked myself in the bathroom and pulled out my phone. I needed to find that paramedic. He was the only other person who knew the truth, and if I was going to do something about this, I couldn't do it alone. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this story from? Write it in the comments. It's incredible to see people from so many places following stories like this. Finding the paramedic wasn't easy. I couldn't ask questions without raising suspicion, so I went through the emergency department's transport logs. Every ambulance arrival is recorded with the company name, unit number, and crew members. I scrolled back to the time of the incident and found the entry. Northwest Metro Ambulance, Unit 73. Lead paramedic, Marcus Rivera. I took a photo of the screen with my phone and then cleared my search history. 20 minutes later, I was in my car, driving to the Northwest Metro station on the other side of the city. It was almost 3 a.m, and the streets were empty. My mind kept replaying everything I had seen, the witness, the interrogation, the fear in that man's eyes. When I arrived at the ambulance station, I parked across the street and waited. I didn't know if Marcus would even be there, or if he would talk to me if he was, but I had to try. At 3:45, a figure emerged from the side entrance. It was him. Same build, same walk. He was out of uniform now, wearing jeans and a jacket, and he moved quickly toward a pickup truck in the lot. I got out of my car and called his name, Marcus. He froze. Slowly, he turned around, and when he saw me, his face went white. You, the nurse from St. Catherine. What are you doing here? I walked toward him, my hands raised to show I wasn't a threat. I saw what you did, the sign language. I know you were trying to warn me, and I saw the patient. I know who he is. Marcus looked around the empty parking lot, his breathing rapid and shallow. You need to leave. Right now. You don't understand what you've gotten yourself into. I'm not leaving until you tell me the truth, I said. Who ordered you to transport that man? And why did they force you out of the hospital? He ran a hand through his hair and let out a shaky breath. Then he looked at me with an expression of pure desperation. They threatened me, okay? They said if I talked to anyone, my family would pay the price. My wife, my daughter. They showed me photos of them at school, at home. They know everything. I felt a chill run down my spine. Who are they? I don't know, he said. I got a call 3 hours before the transport, a voice I didn't recognize. They told me to pick up a patient from a location outside the city and bring him to St. Catherine under the name John Doe. No questions, no paperwork, no witnesses. When I arrived at the location, it was an abandoned warehouse. The man was barely conscious, tied to a chair. There were 2 men in suits standing over him. They loaded him onto my gurney and told me to deliver him to the hospital emergency room, where military personnel would be waiting. Marcus's voice cracked. I didn't want to do it, but they had pictures of my little girl. What was I supposed to do? I understood. I wanted to be angry at him, but I couldn't. He was a victim too. Did you see anything else? I asked. Any names? Any clues about who those men were? He shook his head, but I heard them talking. They mentioned something about a transfer. They said the witness had to be moved before dawn, or the whole operation would be compromised. A transfer. That meant they were planning to move him out of the hospital soon. Maybe they already had. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to stay silent or hide something, even when you knew it was wrong? Tell me in the comments. I want to know if you understand what we were feeling in that moment. I drove back to the hospital with Marcus's words echoing in my head. A transfer before dawn. I glanced at the clock on my dashboard. 4:17 in the morning. If they were planning to move the witness, I had less than 2 hours to figure out what to do. When I returned to St. Catherine, the restricted area was still guarded, but the activity had changed. I could see people moving inside through the windows, gathering equipment, preparing for something. I went to the nurses' station and logged into the hospital system again, this time searching for any scheduled patient transfers. Nothing, but that didn't surprise me. Whatever they were planning, it wouldn't be in the official records. I needed access to security footage. The hospital's surveillance system recorded everything, and if I could get my hands on the video from tonight, I would have proof of what was happening. The problem was that only hospital security and administration had access to those files. I thought about who I could trust. Most of my colleagues would tell me to stay out of it, to let the authorities handle whatever was going on. But there was one person who might help. Dr. Alan Foster. He was the head of the emergency department, and he had a reputation for standing up to hospital administration when patient care was at risk. More importantly, he was one of the few people I knew who had access to the security office. I found him in the break room, drinking coffee and reviewing patient charts. I sat down next to him and spoke quietly. Dr. Foster, I need to talk to you about something serious. It's about the incident in the ER tonight. He looked at me over the rim of his coffee cup, his expression unreadable. What incident? The military lockdown, the patient who was brought in under guard, the fact that there's no record of any of it in our system. His jaw tightened. Nurse Morgan, I don't know what you think you saw, but I would strongly advise you to drop this. Sometimes things happen in this hospital that are above our pay grade, things that involve national security. I leaned forward. That man they brought in is a federal witness. I recognized him from the news. He was supposed to testify in a major trial, and he disappeared. Now he's here, being interrogated, not treated. And I think they're planning to move him before anyone realizes what's happening. Dr. Foster set down his coffee cup and stared at me for a long moment. If what you're saying is true, then we're both in danger just by having this conversation. I know, but we can't just let this happen. We took an oath to protect our patients. All of them. He rubbed his face with both hands, clearly torn between his duty and his fear. Then he stood up. Come with me. We walked through the empty corridors to the security office. Dr. Foster knocked twice, and a young security guard opened the door. Greg, I need to review some footage from tonight. Emergency department, between 11 p.m. and now. The guard hesitated. Sir, I was told by administration that tonight's footage is restricted. No access without direct authorization from the chief of security. Dr. Foster's voice turned cold. Greg, I'm the head of this department. If there's an issue with patient care or safety, I have the right to review any footage I need. Now let me in, or I'll have your supervisor here in 5 minutes. The guard stepped aside. We entered the small office filled with monitors and recording equipment. Dr. Foster sat down at the main console and pulled up the footage from the emergency department. We watched in silence as the events of the night unfolded on screen. The paramedics' arrival, the military officers, the lockdown. And then something neither of us expected. At 4:32 a.m., just 18 minutes from now according to the timestamp, the footage showed a scheduled helicopter landing on the hospital roof. Dr. Foster and I stared at the screen in disbelief. A helicopter. They were planning to evacuate the witness by air, right from our hospital roof. That's how they're moving him, I whispered. No ground transport, no paper trail, just a helicopter in and out before sunrise. Dr. Foster's face had gone pale. This isn't just about hiding a witness. This is a black operation. Someone very powerful wants this man gone, and they're using our hospital as cover. We have to stop this, I said. We have to contact the FBI, the media, someone who can expose what's happening before that helicopter arrives. He shook his head slowly. Catherine, if we go public with this and we're wrong, our careers are over. And if we're right, we might end up dead. These people clearly have resources and connections. They've infiltrated a major hospital and coordinated a military-style extraction. Do you really think they'll let us walk away if we interfere? I looked at him, and I could see the fear in his eyes. But I also saw something else. Conflict. He knew the right thing to do, even if he was terrified of the consequences. I pulled out my phone. Then we document everything, right now. We take photos of these screens, we copy the footage, and we send it to multiple sources. If something happens to us, at least the truth will be out there. He hesitated for only a moment, then nodded. Do it. Fast. I started photographing every screen, every angle, every piece of evidence we had. Dr. Foster copied the surveillance files onto a flash drive. The security guard, Greg, watched us nervously, but didn't try to stop us. Just as I finished, my phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Stop what you're doing, Nurse Morgan. You've been warned. My blood ran cold. They knew. Someone was watching us right now. I showed the message to Dr. Foster, and his face went white. We need to leave. Now. But before we could move, the door to the security office burst open. Two men in dark suits entered, and behind them, one of the military officers from earlier. The lead man looked at us with cold, emotionless eyes. Dr. Foster, Nurse Morgan, you've just made a very serious mistake. I felt my heart pounding so hard I thought it would break through my chest. The man stepped closer. That flash drive, the photos on your phone. Hand them over, now. Dr. Foster straightened his back, and I saw him transform from a frightened doctor into someone determined to do the right thing. No, this witness is under our care. Whatever you're planning to do with him violates every medical and legal protocol. We're contacting the authorities. The man smiled, but it was the coldest smile I had ever seen. You don't understand. We are the authorities, and this situation is far above your clearance level. That man in the restricted area is a threat to national security. His testimony would compromise ongoing operations that protect thousands of lives. We're not hiding him. We're protecting the country. I didn't believe a word of it, but before I could respond, an alarm blared throughout the hospital. Code Silver, active threat. The security guard's radio crackled to life. All units, we have an unauthorized entry on the 5th floor. Multiple armed individuals, requesting immediate backup. The men in suits looked at each other, confused. One of them spoke into his earpiece. Who authorized an incursion? I want a status report now. And that's when I realized something. Someone else was here. Someone else wanted that witness, and they were willing to fight for him. Chaos erupted throughout the hospital. The Code Silver alarm continued blaring, and I could hear shouting and footsteps echoing through the corridors. The men in suits ran out of the security office, weapons drawn, leaving Dr. Foster and me alone with Greg, the security guard. What's happening? Dr. Foster asked, his voice shaking. Greg was frantically checking the security monitors, switching between camera feeds. He pointed at one of the screens. There, 5th floor, East Wing. I looked at the monitor and saw 4 figures dressed in black tactical gear, moving with military precision through the hallway. They weren't hospital staff. They weren't the same group that had brought the witness in. These were someone else entirely. One of them carried a tactical rifle, another had bolt cutters, and they were heading directly toward the restricted area where the witness was being held. They're going for him, I said. They're here to extract the witness before the helicopter arrives. Dr. Foster grabbed my arm. We need to evacuate. Now. This is going to turn into a war zone. But I couldn't move. Something about this didn't make sense. If this new group wanted to harm the witness, they would have come in shooting. But they were moving carefully, deliberately, like they were trying to avoid casualties. I turned to Greg. Can you get me audio from the 5th floor? He looked at me like I was insane. Why? Just do it. Please. He hesitated, then pulled up the audio feed. We heard voices, clear and professional. Target located. Preparing for extraction. Civilian presence confirmed. We are code green. No unnecessary force. Repeat, code green. Code green meant they were prioritizing civilian safety. These weren't assassins. They were a rescue team. Oh my God, I whispered. They're the good guys. Dr. Foster looked at me. What? Those people are here to save the witness. The others, the ones in military uniforms, they're the ones trying to disappear him. We've had it backwards this whole time. Before anyone could respond, an explosion rocked the building. The lights flickered, and several monitors went dark. Greg shouted into his radio. What was that? Where did it come from? The response came back immediately. Rooftop, helicopter pad, possible explosive device, helicopter grounded. I repeat, helicopter is grounded. The extraction team had sabotaged the helicopter. They knew about the planned evacuation, and they had made sure it couldn't happen. Dr. Foster and I looked at each other. If the helicopter was destroyed, the men holding the witness would be trapped and desperate. Suddenly, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered it anyway. Nurse Morgan, a voice said. This is Agent Sarah Vega, FBI. I need you to listen very carefully. You and Dr. Foster are in immediate danger. The people in that hospital claiming to be military are not legitimate. They're private contractors working for a criminal syndicate. We've been tracking them for months. That voice, it was calm, authoritative, and somehow I believed her. What do you need us to do? Agent Vega spoke quickly. The witness, Michael Torres, is critical to bringing down a network that spans multiple countries. We have a team inside the hospital right now to extract him, but we need your help. You know the building better than we do. We need you to guide our team to the fastest route out without encountering civilians. I looked at Dr. Foster. He nodded. Tell me what to do, I said. Agent Vega gave me detailed instructions. We were about to become part of a federal operation inside our own hospital, and there was no turning back now. Dr. Foster and I moved quickly through the hospital corridors, guided by Agent Vega's instructions over my phone. The building was in lockdown, and patients were being moved to secure areas by hospital staff who had no idea what was really happening. We reached the service stairwell on the east side, the one that maintenance used, and most people didn't even know existed. Agent Vega told us the extraction team would meet us there. When we pushed through the door, we found ourselves face to face with 4 heavily armed operatives in tactical gear. The lead operative, a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor, spoke first. Dr. Foster, Nurse Morgan, he nodded. That's us. She lowered her weapon slightly. I'm Agent Chen, FBI Tactical Response. We have the witness, but we're pinned down. The contractors have blocked the main exits, and they have backup arriving within minutes. We need an alternate route out of this building that they won't anticipate. I thought fast, visualizing the hospital's layout in my mind. There's a loading dock in the basement. It's used for large medical equipment deliveries. The access tunnel connects to the parking structure across the street. If you can get him there, you can exit through the parking garage without going through the main hospital exits. Agent Chen looked at one of her team members, who pulled up a digital map on a tablet. Confirm that route. The operative checked and nodded. It's viable, but we need a guide. The basement level is a maze. I'll take you, I said. Dr. Foster grabbed my shoulder. Catherine, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do, I replied. This is our hospital, our patient, our responsibility. Agent Chen handed me a radio and a vest. Stay close. If shooting starts, get down and don't move until I tell you. We descended the stairs rapidly, the extraction team moving with practiced efficiency. In the center of their formation was Michael Torres, the witness. He was handcuffed to one of the agents for security, his face bruised and terrified. When he saw me, he whispered, "Thank you." I didn't respond. There wasn't time. We reached the basement level, and I led them through the labyrinth of corridors, past storage rooms, past the morgue, past areas of the hospital I had only been to a handful of times. Behind us, I could hear shouting and footsteps. The contractors were searching for us. Agent Chen spoke into her radio. Command, this is TAC Team 2. We are en route to Extraction Point Beta. ETA 3 minutes. Request immediate backup at parking structure level. The response crackled back. Backup inbound. Hold position if compromised. We kept moving. I could feel my heart racing, my hands shaking, but I forced myself to focus. We turned a corner and suddenly came face to face with 2 armed contractors. They raised their weapons. Everyone froze. The lead contractor spoke coldly. FBI, you're in violation of a national security directive. Release the prisoner immediately. Agent Chen didn't flinch. That man is under federal protection. You have no authority here. Drop your weapons. For a moment, nobody moved. The tension was suffocating. Then, from behind the contractors, a voice rang out. Federal agents, hands in the air. A second FBI team had flanked them. The contractors were surrounded. Slowly, they lowered their weapons and raised their hands. Agent Chen moved forward and secured them while her team continued escorting Michael Torres toward the loading dock. We made it to the exit. Outside, 3 unmarked SUVs were waiting, engines running. The witness was loaded into the center vehicle, and Agent Chen turned to me. "You just saved this man's life, Nurse Morgan. What you did tonight matters, more than you know." Before I could respond, the vehicle sped away into the early morning darkness. The days following that night were surreal. The hospital was swarmed by federal investigators, and the entire incident was classified as a national security matter. Officially, nothing had happened. There were no public reports, no media coverage, no acknowledgement that armed operatives had been inside St. Catherine Medical Center. But those of us who had been there knew the truth. Dr. Foster and I were interviewed separately by FBI agents multiple times. They took our statements, reviewed the security footage we had copied, and confirmed everything we had witnessed. Agent Vega herself came to speak with me on the 3rd day. We sat in a quiet conference room, and she explained what we had been caught in the middle of. Michael Torres had been part of a federal witness protection program after agreeing to testify against a powerful international crime syndicate, but someone inside the system had leaked his location. The contractors who infiltrated the hospital were hired mercenaries, paid to either silence him or deliver him to the syndicate. The FBI had been tracking the leak for weeks, and when they discovered the plan to move Torres through the hospital, they launched their own operation to save him. "You and Dr. Foster disrupted their timeline," Agent Vega said. "By documenting everything and refusing to back down, you forced the contractors to act faster than they planned. That gave us the window we needed to get our team inside." I asked the question that had been haunting me. "Is he safe now?" "Michael Torres?" Agent Vega nodded. "He's in a secure location, and thanks to his testimony, which he gave 3 days ago, we've made 17 arrests across 4 countries. This case is going to dismantle one of the largest criminal networks operating today." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Then she leaned forward, her expression serious. "But I need you to understand something, Nurse Morgan. What you did was incredibly brave. It was also incredibly dangerous. These people don't forget. Even though the operation failed, they know who interfered. We're putting protections in place for you and Dr. Foster, but you need to be vigilant." I nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. Over the next few weeks, things slowly returned to normal, or as normal as they could be. I saw Marcus Rivera, the paramedic, one more time. He came to the hospital to thank me personally. His family was safe, and he had been cleared of any wrongdoing by the FBI. He told me that signing those letters in the emergency room had been the hardest decision of his life, but he couldn't live with himself if he had stayed silent. We both knew what it felt like to see something wrong and choose to act, even when the cost could have been everything. St. Catherine Medical Center went back to being a place where lives were saved and emergencies were handled with professionalism. But I never forgot that night. I never forgot the look in Michael Torres's eyes when he whispered thank you, and I never stopped believing that sometimes doing the right thing means risking everything, because silence has a cost too, and I wasn't willing to pay it. 6 months have passed since that night. Life has moved forward, but I'm not the same person I was before. I still work at St. Catherine Medical Center. I still take the night shift. I still walk through those same corridors where everything happened, but now I see things differently. I notice details that others miss. I trust my instincts even more than before, and I understand that sometimes the most important battles are fought in silence, in small moments of courage that no one will ever hear about. Michael Torres did testify. His testimony led to the conviction of 43 individuals connected to an international criminal syndicate involved in arms trafficking, money laundering, and human smuggling. The trial was sealed for security reasons, so his name never appeared in the media, but I know, and that's enough. Dr. Foster was promoted to Chief Medical Officer of the hospital. He told me privately that the experience changed him. He realized that leadership isn't just about managing staff and budgets. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's terrifying. Marcus Rivera left the ambulance service and now works as a paramedic instructor, teaching the next generation. He told me he wants them to understand that their job isn't just about transporting patients. It's about being the voice for people who can't speak for themselves. As for me, I received a commendation from the FBI that I can never show anyone. It sits in a locked drawer in my apartment, a reminder of what happened. But more than any award, what stays with me is the knowledge that I made a choice. I chose to see. I chose to act. I chose to risk everything for someone I didn't even know, and I would do it again. There are moments in life when we're faced with a decision. We can look away, stay safe, and tell ourselves that it's not our problem. Or we can step forward, even when we're terrified, even when the odds are against us, and do what's right. That night in the emergency room, I saw a paramedic send a desperate message with his hands. I saw a witness fighting for his life, and I saw an opportunity to make a difference. Looking back, I realized that the most dangerous thing I could have done was nothing, because evil doesn't win when people fight back. Evil wins when good people choose silence. This story isn't just about me. It's about every nurse, every doctor, every paramedic, every person who works in healthcare and sees things that don't make sense, things that feel wrong, things that demand action. We have a responsibility, not just to our patients, but to the truth. And sometimes that responsibility means risking everything. So here's my question for you. If you saw something that no one else noticed, something that could change everything, would you have the courage to act? Would you speak up, even if it meant putting yourself in danger? I hope you never have to face that choice. But if you do, I hope you remember this story. I hope you remember that one person, paying attention at the right moment, can save a life, can change the course of justice, can make all the difference in the world. My name is Catherine Morgan. I'm a nurse. And this is what happened the night a paramedic was ordered to leave the room, but I noticed what no one else did. This story shows how a single moment of attention can change everything. Sometimes, seeing what no one else sees isn't luck, it's responsibility. Have you ever been in a situation where you noticed something that nobody else did? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story. If you made it this far, please subscribe to the channel. These stories are real, intense, and deserve to be shared. Hit that bell so you don't miss the next account I'm going to bring. And don't leave now. The next recommended video will show you another story you won't believe actually happened.